Hello, everyone, and welcome to Booming Encore's Check This Out. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore. And today I'm delighted to actually welcome Jeff Weiss. Jeff is the president and CEO of Age Majority, as well as the owner of a new digital hub called Revolution 55. And what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about how baby boomers, or people who actually, as Jeff calls them, active agers, are really changing the environment as it relates to aging and some of the things that he's discovering. So welcome, Jeff. Great to have you.
Susan, I am thrilled to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Okay, so before we get started, Jeff, why don't you just explain a little bit about the Revolution 55 platform and what you're actually hoping to achieve, or what you're doing there?
Sure. So my core business is called Age Majority, and we're on a mission to break the myths and crush the stereotypes and stigmas associated with aging, which is a really, really big task. And you and I are on the same kind of mission to do that. But our focus is really on the marketing community, the business side of things. And we're trying to get marketers to really, first and foremost, take notice of older consumers, because they're, often ignored, especially once you turn 55, something magical happens. But even when marketers are talking to them, trying to engage them, do them in ways that are not stereotypical, sometimes they are offensive. So, we started Revolution 55 so that we could provide the voice of active aging consumers to those marketers who we're talking to, because all the numbers are there in terms of who's got the wealth, who's spending all the money. Marketers, a lot of them are younger, and it's like, I don't want to be marketing to my grandparents, blah, blah, blah. So, I can talk, show numbers, but what we were missing and why we started Revolution 55 is we really needed to put the voice of the active aging consumer in front of marketers and businesses and brands. So it's not just me talking, but it's actual consumers who are they're missing the boat on targeting these people. So that's why we started it.
Well, that's great. And how could people actually get involved or share their voice?
It is so easy. Revolution55.com. That's it. You go on, and there's some quick onboarding. You register some questions. And then we put out 4 to 5 activities a week, all types of areas. We've got one that we just put out yesterday, example about food labeling and what people are looking for, everything to some of the stuff we're going to talk about today in terms of what people like to be called. We did stuff on e-bikes, on COVID, so a wide variety of topics. It's a lot of fun, and people aren't being asked so much to give their opinion, and that's why we started this, but also they want to see and hear what other people like them think. So it's really valuable and interesting to people who get involved.
Okay, so why don't we dive in? Let's talk about some of the things that you're actually discovering. For instance, COVID-19. I mean, we've all heard the doom and gloom, and especially related to older people, but you've actually discovered us a little bit of good news. Do you want to share about that?
Absolutely. And, we call these, we're not that we didn't coin this, but it's the silver linings of COVID, right? And, we've done it within my business, we going around. And so we put out the question, despite all the doom and gloom, what are some of the positive things that have come out of it? And I was a little surprised by the number one answer amongst we call them revolutionaries, was the ability to complete tasks around the house, right? So think about all these things that it's like, oh, if I only had time, I would do I would do some landscaping. For me, it's clean out the garage.
Yeah,
so
I've got
number
the
one,
closets.
yeah, right. Get rid of clothes that, for sure you're not going to wear anymore because you don't need anything to dress up in. So the ability to complete things around the house was number one. And then the next one, which to me I experienced the most, was getting to spend more time with family. So, for example, I've got a 24-year-old son who I'm very close with, who, works on the West Coast. I'm more East Coast. And, we've all been working remotely. So we've got to spend the last year with him. Fortunately, we get along with him well. And it's just, we're never going to have this time with him again. So that came out. The next year we got to relax more. And the final one, which was really close to that, is I got to save money and pay off some debts, right? So, everyone thinks about, people losing their jobs and things like that. But there's a lot of people who actually got to save money because they weren't spending on things, and actually pay down debt as well. So that was really cool. Plus the ability to explore kind of new passions and hobbies also came up, which I think, puzzles, you can't buy a puzzle now, they're out of stock.
Yeah, it's so true though. I mean, because we did get a little bit of extra time, and in some ways the pressure was off. I found like you didn't feel that pressure to have to do. It was almost like, okay, I can actually sit down, catch my breath, and maybe do some of those things as you mentioned that you've been meaning to. So,
Yeah,
well, that's, I mean, like you said, a little bit of a silver lining. Hopefully, with the vaccine now out and available, we're going to be quickly moving through and hopefully see happier days ahead, and that's something we can all hopefully look forward to. Okay, now
absolutely.
let's change the topic a bit because this one's the age-old question of what do you call older people? And you said you got quite a few thoughts on this. You want to share some of those insights?
Yes, and I have to be careful because I know you kind of talk about boomers, and so from our point of view, society kind of feels like they need to label people, right? And particularly generations. So the hot ones now are the Gen Zers, right? And it's like all this focus, yet they have no money. So I don't quite understand it. But you got Gen Z, you got millennials, you got Gen X, and then you've got boomer seniors and all that. So society feels this need to kind of lump people together. But the problem is, though, is that you call out someone and say, oh, like I'm a boomer now because I'm 56, and it's like, no, I'm not really, I don't really fit in. Or many years ago, for those who remember, I used to work for Pepsi, and we talked about the people being the choice of the new generation, and for us at Pepsi that meant kind of teenagers. And you ask teenagers, they go, I'm not the new generation, what are you talking about, right? So it's the same kind of thing. So I think that marketers like to put people in buckets. And the problem, particularly with older consumers, is that there's so many stereotypes and stigmas associated with old people that don't exist, or not nearly to the extent they did even 20, 30 years ago. When you call someone out saying you're a senior or you're, a golden ager, it's like people automatically, it's like, I don't want to be associated with that because society kind of thinks of me and, this
This
you know,
lens, yeah,
this,
exactly.
this person in a wheelchair with no social life or any of that. So those don't exist anymore. So, we went out to our Revolution 55 community, and we've done this a couple of times now. Every couple of years we do it. We said, what do you want to be called? And we didn't give them choices. We kept it open. And, one thing we heard for sure is like golden ages, do not call me a golden age, because golden age to people means I'm like, the next step for me is death. Right. And it's like,
Yeah, that
that's not what I
golden
want to
thing is
think
that
about.
there's a
Right.
bright light that's at the
Yeah.
end of
So,
the road.
from our point of view, it's like, don't, our advice is not to label people
Yeah.
based on, kind of their age and stuff like that. From a marketing point of view, it's basic marketing, and like, just target me based on what my needs are and what I want. Don't bring in age, because as soon as you say, this product is for you because you're a senior, geez, I'm old. It's like, I'm not old, so I don't want this product, right? But there's two quotes that I pulled out which really show it's a really, some people are offended by some things, others by others. But, we had one person said, I prefer the term seniors. I hate boomers, right? So that was one point of view. And then right after was, I like baby boomers. I don't like seniors. Right. So it was like, ugh. So that's the problem. It's like a lot of people are like, whatever, I don't really care, blah, blah, blah. But then some people do. So, to try to label people, try to avoid it. The one quote that I love was, it was some person, I can't remember where they're from. They said, I don't care what you call me, just call me.
Yeah.
Right. Because, and that to me was the essence of, activators are craving for marketers to reach out to them first and foremost. And if they do so, just kind of,
Yeah,
reach
talk to me as a
and
person. Like that's what I
exactly,
am.
right.
And
Yeah.
and just to kind of dovetail on that, I mean, not to be reference baby boomers, it's mainly just so that people at least know sort of the type of information that we're sharing. But I'm with you. I don't think anybody, no matter what age you are, should be labeled anything. I mean, we are people, we are individuals. We've all got, our own unique interests and needs and requirements. And I think we should all be treated that way based on, what we're interested in and what we would like to actually be treated as, which is
Yeah.
an individual. So I agree with
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. I know
cool.
looking at your content, I know we're on the same page for
Yeah.
sure. And it's like, yeah, we're not kind of, it's like nothing magical happens when you turn 55 or 60. Like, it's just, yeah, some
No, you
things
don't
start
cross
going,
over some
yeah,
special bridge and then it's only
no,
this
no,
group allowed, which is
no.
interesting. So, okay, so why don't we end on one, these interesting topics, and we've all got the vision in our mind of that commercial. I've fallen and I can't get
Can't
up.
get up.
The personal emergency response systems, like what's happening in this field and what's people's feelings towards it?
Well, this is really interesting because we did some research on this for a client that we're working on. And I've got to tell you, I was surprised in terms of how much more positive reception was to these pairs, the personal emergency response systems, than I thought. And this is really related to my own story. So just really quickly, my mother turned 90 last June. And about 4 or 5 years ago, she actually had a bad fall. She was in her condo, and fortunately, she was able to get up, but she actually hurt her back and did some damage. So, I'm the youngest of four siblings, and it was my task to go see her after this and get her to wear one of these, bracelets or one of the pendants, right? So I'm having breakfast with her, and I said, "Oh, I want to talk to you about something." And she knew exactly where I was going. She said, "I don't want to talk about this. I'm not wearing one of those things."
Hmm.
And it was like, whoa. And we ended up coming up with a solution that worked for both of us. But for her, and for what we thought a lot of people would say is, I wear this, it means I'm old, it means that I'm frail, all that. And my mother, just didn't want to go there, right? So, but it was interesting because when we did our research with our community, there was about 25%, of a quarter of the people said, they're for old people, right? So I thought that number was going to be a lot higher, but over half of the people said, you know what, it really gives me and my family a peace of mind. Plus, it provides a sense of security for me and my family. So much more positive in terms of people's response and perceptions than I thought. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And then, we asked people about, and again, given my story, what's the best way of, if someone really needs this, and everyone's going to feel more comfortable and secure about this, what's the best way of getting someone to explore even thinking about one of these, right? And I know from my own failure, friends and family, probably not great. And that was confirmed in our research. If a medical professional asks me, that's the number one thing, right? Because that person is, I trust, and they're looking out for my well-being, right? So that was number one. And then the second thing was someone who was actually fallen, right? And again, I saw this with my mother. It's like, do you really want to be the thought of lying there wherever you are for hours, day, whatever, right?
Yeah.
It can be a bit morbid, like, so, but it has to be really an internal thing, getting someone outside other than a medical professional to say, hey, you should think about wearing these. It really has to be internal or from a medical professional, right?
Yeah, and plus we're seeing a lot of development in this area. Like there's a lot of new technologies that are starting to come onto the scene, which aren't necessarily as intrusive. So I think that whole area is starting to improve, but at the same time, like you mentioned, it is often felt as a lack of independence, and like you said, a statement that I now need help, which a lot of people don't want to. So
Yeah,
I can understand how, for instance, a trusted resource recommending it would definitely, increase the
yeah.
desire to actually do this.
Yeah, and to your point, I've had so many conversations with people around the world who are coming up with new technology, new innovations, and it's not just about fall detection when someone falls; it's actually fall prevention, right? So there's
Mhm.
so much happening technology-wise. So we asked people kind of what's the actual kind of device that you'd feel most comfortable with, and because for the most part, it's just been, like I said, those bracelets or the pendants. So I think they came third. But number one was a wearable device.
Mm. So
And
like
so,
the iWatch or something like that. Yeah.
the Apple Watch, something like that, which they're already working and building stuff in because it's less kind of obvious, right? And so people, if I can wear a watch and it detects that I fall, great. Smart speakers came up. A lot of people, the Alexa and stuff like that
Yeah.
that can detect where you fall. There are some things now where it's just more sensors that aren't
Mhm.
obvious in the house. Plus, just in terms of mobile apps and stuff like that are on your phone that can detect things. So, I think for the companies that are currently in kind of that space with the pennants, they're going to have to evolve and change, or else they're going to
Yeah.
be
Evolve
gone.
or
Yeah,
die. Yeah.
yeah. So we thought that was really interesting stuff that surprised us in some of the answers.
Yeah, and I think there's also an opportunity for us as we age as well, because there's been a lot of research about how people aren't willing to use some of the technologies and things that are developed for us because they were a fear of it making us look old. But I mean, if you think about it, if it's something that's really going to help us, I think there's an opportunity for us to also change some of those perceived stereotypes, and also, kind of take a look at ourselves. For instance, hearing aids are often one of the most overlooked devices that can actually help you, but people don't want to wear them because it makes you look old, quote unquote.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
now
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense because they've evolved so far. So, I mean, I think we need to also challenge our own perspectives and views and stereotypes that we've attached to certain things as well.
Absolutely. A lot of it is just internal, what people think internally. And it's just, it kind of keeps the stereotypes going, unfortunately. But combined, we're working on kind of changing those things, which is awesome, which is great.
Well, this is great, Jeff. This is some really interesting stuff. And as I mentioned, hopefully we can get together on a frequent basis and share some of this with our audiences. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Susan. And again, we'd love to have as many people on our community. So revolution55.com, we'd love to have you join. And there's some great incentives we offer up too.
Oh, that's
Thanks
great.
a lot.
Okay. Well, thanks so much again, Jeff, and to everybody out there. We hope you found this information interesting and it helps you live your best booming encore. Bye for now, everyone.